Welcome back to the Sensible Mama podcast. I am Paulina Westcott. I'm your host. Before we get started, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and share it with a pregnant mama that you think might benefit. And let's just dive right in. My guest today is Alexia. She is a doula. We just recently met. We had a really nice time at the playground with our kids. She's here in Connecticut with me. So Alexia, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then I definitely want to dive into your birth story so everybody can hear how that went down.
All right, well, first, thank you for having me. And I am a first-time mama. I have a 1.5-year-old named Sailor. She was born on January 19th, and I do love talking about my birth story. I feel like most people do, and I love to hear birth stories. I grew up in Puerto Rico, and my first language is Spanish, so that has really helped me get going in the doula community because I feel like doulas are becoming more popular, and they are kind of, fighting for clients, and luckily I've been able to really help the Spanish community. It's nice that as a new doula I've been having so many clients. And a little bit random about me, I love to read, I love to dance, and I definitely would consider myself more of like a scrunchy, crunchy mama, whatever, more naturally minded. But I'm happy to support clients no matter what they want. And I always say that because I feel like people, they think of a doula and they're like, oh, a doula only wants to take on a client that doesn't want an epidural and they want to do things all natural. And that's not true. Maybe some doulas are very picky about who they take on. Maybe they're very busy and that's just really that's their thing. But most doulas will support a mom in whatever it is that they want because that's the whole point. We want you to have the birth that you want, whatever makes you feel safe. So, but anyway, I'm excited to talk about it all.
I agree. I just want to I had a conversation literally just this morning with a mama who didn't have a birth that she expected. It went awry, you might say, or maybe it didn't even go awry. It just, there were additional complications that made it more challenging than, some other births are. And she's like, the home birth community kind of didn't dig how it went down or whatever. And it was funny, it got me really thinking on the topic where I'm like, your birth is your own, and it's not your friends or your husbands even, or your doctors or your midwives, it's yours. And ultimately, we can get into all of the science behind it, and there sure is plenty, but ultimately, the thing that is going to make your birth go is your state of mind. And of course, there are physical conditions too, but I'd say half the battle is your state of mind. So if you're not comfortable and you don't feel safe and you have worries or fears, those are going to get in the way. That being said, for some mamas, a hospital birth with interventions is the way that they feel safest. And so long as they're in control and they know the decisions they're making and the decisions aren't being forced on them, because that's a big thing, you don't want to feel powerless in birth. But if you feel like you're in control and you're like, you know what, with the way this is going and the information that I have, I am making a decision right now to, get an epidural. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with you for making that decision. If you're like, hey, all of my friends have hospital births, but I want to do it at home. Great. If that's where you feel safe and you've made the decision based on knowledge and based on, a really responsible point of view, then fantastic. And if you're like, hey, I want to schedule a C-section. If you've come to that decision through knowledge and through really taking responsibility, fantastic. Then that's what you should do, right?
Whatever makes you feel comfortable. And my friend, I don't remember exactly the wording that the nurse said to her, but she had planned to go do an all-natural birth, and it was a while. She was struggling. The nurse was like, if you absolutely hate this, you can make it easier on yourself. It can be enjoyable, and that's your choice. Or yeah, she did use the word enjoyable. She's like, it doesn't have to be this bad. And my friend was like, okay. And she's like, and it was great. She's like, I was watching the football game and I gave birth. So I'm just like, hey, if in the moment you went in with one plan, it's good to know what you want, but it's also good to have some flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
Then that's when you really beat yourself up afterward. But again, you just make them feel like you made the right choice. You did what felt right for you, even if this is what you originally wanted. This is how it unfolded. Birth will unfold not how we usually expect it, and mine didn't go how I expected it at all. And I like I was telling you, I love my birth experience, but I would also do so much more differently for the next one.
Yeah, I agree. Well, let's just dive into it. Let's get into your birth story.
Yes, so I actually still had my group chat between my husband and my doula. So I went back to check the times because in my head I'm like, oh, start to finish, it was like 4 hours, which is like pretty wild for a first time mom.
Hmm.
Um, but now looking back at the text, I'm like, okay, maybe it was 5 hours. So on the morning of 38 weeks, I went in for an appointment, and I was just getting a checkup, and I was meeting the male OB for the first time, which was good. I wanted to meet them all, whoever might be the one delivering my baby, and he wanted to do a cervical check, and I knew I didn't want that, but I was at this appointment by myself, and I was like, do I have to? And he was like, his response was, well, during labor, they're going to do it a lot, so you might as well get used to it. And I was like, okay. And it was just one of those moments where I was like, I know I did my research on this, and I like don't really want to, because it doesn't matter the number. Like the number doesn't matter what he says today. But I was like, fine. So he did it. I was 2 centimeters. I was feeling fine. I went home. And then I was spotting and lightly cramping. And he didn't tell me that that could be something that happened. So I called back, and I'm worried. And I'm like, I'm bleeding. I'm cramping. They're like, that's totally normal after a cervical check. So I'm like, okay. So that day, I actually get the urge to set up the bassinet and everything. And I have like lighter than period cramps. It's very light, not bothering me, but I'm aware of them. So I just let my doula know, and she's like, okay, we'll see if they get more consistent, see if they get any more intense. So around 6:40 that evening, I text my doula, and I'm like, okay, I'm starting to track them because they're coming more often. But at this point, they still feel like period cramps. And then around close to 8, I started to realize that it could be early labor because they were definitely coming closer. Like at that point, I was having like a couple an hour. And then I sent a text to her saying I had just called my doctor around 9. So at 9 o'clock at night, I called my doctor saying, I'm getting cramps, they're uncomfortable, I'm probably in early labor. And she's like, okay, I'll let them know you'll probably be in tomorrow. And that's what I was thinking. I'm like, okay, this is going to go all night. Me and my husband didn't do any of the things. Like, I didn't get on the ball. I didn't do anything. I was like, I'm going to sleep. I'm going to eat a snack. I'm going to drink water and sleep because I'll be at this all night. So I just got into bed, and at 11:15, my water broke. And it was like the movies. I didn't expect it. It was like a huge gush, and I'm like, ugh. So I shower. My husband gets the car ready, and we get to the birth center, which was a very nice birth center. I was very happy with the staff there, and it was just very nice and small. And we get there right before midnight, and my doula gets there at 12:40. So I remember when I got there, they're having me sign in and check in and sign all this paperwork, and I don't have a chair. I'm standing like at the counter, bent over, having a contraction every minute at this point. Um, and I'm like, why am I not being immediately taken to the room? Like I'm gonna have a baby. And I think they don't think I'm being, that's like, I don't know. I think they think I'm being a baby. They had just gotten a call a few hours ago from my doctor saying, oh, she's in early labor. So when I get into a room and they check me, I'm 8.5 centimeters. So I was close to like getting ready to push, and then they have to like switch a bed. I wasn't in the right bed, so I stand up, and they switch the bed quickly, and I'm like, I have the urge to poop. I'm like, I think like the baby's coming now, and they just checked me 10 minutes ago. She's like, okay, let's check you again, because they're like, you can't start pushing, and I'm like, I'm telling you, I need to push. So they check me, and they're like, oh yeah, you're 10 centimeters. So they're like, okay, like the doctor's coming, she's not here yet though. They're like, if you have to push, you can. And I'm pushing on all fours. I'm like hugging the back of the bed. The bed is sit like upward, which I really like that position. But because my doctor's not there, I was a little scared to push. So I was like pushing, but not really pushing, because I'm like, what happens like if I just give birth and I don't know, she's not here. I don't know. That part made me nervous. But my doula was there now, and the doctor gets there, and she's like, "Okay, get on your back." And again, I remember saying, "Do I have to?" And she's like, "I can't deliver you like that." And at this point, like, I don't have an epidural. I'm in a lot of pain. I'm just like, fine, fine. I like flip over and I push, and I like less than 10 minutes later, my daughter's born. So it all happened like really fast and furious. Um, it was the worst pain for me was a tearing, because like I told you, I had 4 tears.
Mm.
That was like shocking, because one thing I never expected after birth was to still have to like be holding my baby and still having to have my legs spread and open, and them trying to get the placenta out. And I remember her like tugging, and I'm like, oh, that is a terrible feeling. And I was like, can you not? So she took a little longer, but I do remember she tried a few times. And finally the placenta came out, because that has to happen first before they stitch you up. And then that itself took like an hour. So yeah. So
Mm.
I was grateful that they set me up enough for my daughter to breastfeed immediately. That was nice. But then once the stitching started, I was very uncomfortable, and I handed my daughter off to my husband for him to do some skin to skin. And my doula like held my hand, and she was talking to me and distracting me, so that was nice. But I'm like, man, like I just didn't expect to still be like I said, just uncomfortable for over an hour with all this, with a procedure. So it was still a good experience. Like I look back on it and I don't feel trauma, and I still feel very empowered by it. Um, but I'm very excited to do things differently. So like I mentioned to you, I would love a home birth. I'm trying to talk my husband into that. Um, and I'm doing all the research on that now too. I would love to get experience like being a doula at a home birth, but I know it's harder to get that here. There's a lot of doulas that have all the experience, so they're more likely to be the doula being called. But I hope to get to see one before my own. But I love hearing about it, and your stories were so empowering, and it's just I wish I had the guts to do it with my first, especially because, well, I guess I should have said this. My pregnancy was pretty smooth. I think like I loved being pregnant. I felt very beautiful. The only thing that really stunk was the gestational diabetes. That was like really annoying. And that does make me a little nervous for like the future pregnancies, just because I just know that I'm more likely to get it again. So that stinks, but I have a little more peace of mind already, having talked to very briefly to a midwife I found, and she's like, gestational diabetes, we can totally work with that. So
That's awesome. Well, your story is incredible. The thing that shocks me about it is, a hospital sees so many births daily, right? Like literally daily. And yes, there is I would say, more typical schedule for a first time mama, right? Like 5 hours is not a lot of time for a first time baby, or for a first baby. But you would think that the hospital would look at you and recognize that, like, oh, okay, well, this is one of those times where it goes a little faster than we expected. Like, it seems that they were being a bit dismissive, which to me is surprising, because I've seen a total of 2 births, and they were both my own. I already know, I'm not a medical professional, I'm not a midwife, I'm not an OB, but I know that a first time mom could be days in labor, or could be just a couple hours. Like some people have, it's called precipitous labor, where it's like an hour or 2. I know one relative of my husband's whose baby's all just like, she's like, ooh, labor, suddenly baby, like all 4 or 5 kids that she's got.
wow.
It happens. It does happen. It's
Yeah.
yes, it's more rare, but it does happen. And you would think that they would be like, oh, okay, this is one of those times. Let's let's get things going, right?
Yeah, I think maybe because I was standing and talking to them and I wasn't crying. I don't know, maybe they're just like used to that. But I was shocked too. I'm like, why aren't they hustling? I'm like, why am I
Right.
signing paperwork? I'm like, why am I not being greeted at the door with a wheelchair? Like that's just what I had in my mind. But
Yeah, totally. So I have a question for you. So let's pretend that you had a time machine and you could go back in time to that day. Like, of course, you've thought about what you're going to do differently next time. But if you could go back in time, Are there any things that you would have done differently in that experience?
Yes. So I definitely would not have switched over to my back. And I would not have gotten the IV was really annoying also.
Mm.
And I just remembered the placement of it every time I had a contraction, the way I was like tensing up, just it was just stabbing me like further in, and I'm just like, okay, like this, I didn't need this. um, and then I think those were the biggest two things, like not staying in the position I was comfortable in,
Yeah.
and then even being like the fact that they bothered with the whole IV thing and because they want postpartum pitocin. That's right. And I wouldn't have done the postpartum pitocin, knowing now. So I've always had a fear. I've always had this irrational fear of dying during birth. Like I don't know. I've just always thought about it, which is one reason why I was too scared to do a home birth. And then I knew I didn't really want postpartum pitocin, but what they tell you is that this can prevent hemorrhaging. And
Mm-hmm.
even though I saw that a side effect is it could cause hemorrhaging, I was like, well, most likely or usually it prevents it. So I'm like, I'm just gonna be on the safe side and get it because I'm really scared to hemorrhage. And then I found out because I was wondering, I'm like, well, what do they do
Yeah.
at home birth if that happens? And it's like, oh, they carry pitocin and they use it if they need it. So they don't use it as preventative. They just wait and see what happens, which is what
Yeah.
should be done. So, but I didn't know that until afterward. So
Yeah.
yeah, I would change that. I would not get the postpartum pitocin. Um, and yeah, but everything else, I feel like I was very happy with it. I mean, it's nice that I wasn't in pain for very long, but I didn't get to do a single thing that I practiced. I didn't get any rubbing, any massages. Oh, well, it's funny. Apparently, my husband, I read one of his texts to the doula. He's like, she's not responding very well to touch right now. So maybe he tried at the hospital, and the doula was like, okay, good to know, because she was like on her way.
That's
So he
really
tried.
funny. I mean, it is funny. The thing is, you say you didn't get to do all the things you practiced.
Mm-mm.
I can relate, like, I feel like for most, I mean, I shouldn't speak for other moms, but for many of us, we, some girls, they dream about their wedding day and they plan the wedding long before they even have a boyfriend, right? That was me. I was the same way about childbirth, where I was like imagining how it was going to be and what I was going to do and what it would look like. And birth is going to be how birth is going to be. You know what I mean? Like with my first, I had arguably I had too much time. It was 23 hours, which isn't the longest by a long shot, but it was a good amount of time. I got to do all the things. I got to labor in the water. I got to like do the dancing and the massages and whatever, like all the things. Rebozo, which is like the scarf that they put around your belly, and like we were like trying to like shift him into the right position and whatever, and the peanut ball and the birth ball and all the things. And so the one thing that I didn't get to do was deliver my baby in the water, which is all I was picturing, was having this, that you've seen the birth videos where the mom like goes, ah, and then like the baby comes out and she pulls him up out of the water and it's this beautiful scene. And I was like, that's gonna be me. I'm so excited. My body was like, get out of the water. We need gravity's help. Let's do this thing. And I was like, all right, well, next time. So then my next baby, I was like, cool, this is it. I'm going to have my baby in the water. It's going to be amazing. On top of that, at my last appointment with my midwife, she was like, feeling and measuring. She's like, I think he's going to be even bigger than your first kid was. My first was 9 pounds, 6 ounces. And I was like, I'm definitely delivering in the water because A, that helps with tearing and I really don't want to tear again. And B, it's called an aquadural for a reason. It really does help with pain. I was like, I'm delivering this kid in the water. That's just happening. Only he decided to come a lot faster. So much so that the pool was like this full, which obviously you can't deliver a baby in a pool that's this full. And I was like, nope, you stay in there. And he was like, I'm coming out, Ma. And so I still didn't get my water birth. The point is, the moral of the story is birth is gonna unfold the way it unfolds. And you can prepare and you should prepare. You know what I mean? Like you definitely should practice the breathing and learn about, comfort measures and all these things. But at the end of the day, you do have to have sort of a mindset that includes flexibility in it. Like you said, like, okay, so now we're doing this, or, halfway through something isn't working, you got to shift gears, or you have a precipitous labor and you get to do none of the things and your baby just pops out of you in an hour. I don't know.
And you're just like, what even happened?
Yeah. It's truly magically unpredictable.
It's so exciting to plan your next one differently, because even when you feel like, ooh, that one, like that was really good, I feel like for the next one you can even think of more different things, like, oh, this time I'm gonna put up like what are like those cute little sayings and empowering sayings on the wall. Yeah, you're gonna create this cute little corner, and it's just like romanticize birth, and it's the most amazing thing a woman can do. Like, it's just nobody else has this privilege. Like, only a woman can do this. So it's like, embrace that and really feel empowered by it. But I feel like you were saying earlier, it's very mental, for sure. And people think of birth as, it's physical because everybody talks about the pain, but it really is in like mind over matter. And that's where I know, I don't know much about it. I mean, I haven't like studied it, but I know a lot of people talk about hypnobirthing and how that really helps them. And again, that's all the mind. So
Yeah. So on the subject of hypnobirthing, I have very strong feelings against the subject of hypnotism. I have a whole.
Was that a blog? Because I think yes. Okay, so I scrolled past it.
So the thing about it, I won't get into like a whole dissertation on it because I should just make that like a little monologue video at some point. But like, okay, so I listened to the audiobook because right now ain't nobody got time to read actual physical books when you're chasing after 2 toddlers, but audiobooks are where it's at because when I'm putting them to bed, I'm nursing the little one to sleep. That's what I do. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to listen to the audiobook to see what the hype is, what the big deal is. My problem with it is I agree with 95% of what the author is, Mary Mongan, I think, the Mongan method. I agree with 95% of what she says. Like, she talks about mind over matter and getting yourself prepared and breathing and relaxation and nutrition and hydration and like everything is on point until she's like, you need to like put yourself in a trance and get your mind out of it. Because my argument is you want to be present. Like, if you're gonna truly have, because I agree with you, mind over matter is where it's at. Like, it's true of anything. If you're in the gym and you're exercising, at some point you decide you want to give up, you pep talk yourself, like your mind is so powerful. For people that are religious, it's spiritual too. Like, you're bringing new life into the world. This is a spiritual moment too. Mm-hmm. You don't want to check out. You don't want to be in a trance somewhere else, like you want to be there and really be fully present. And so some people argue that hypnotism doesn't, whatever. It's a debate. I'm willing to debate it at some point. But the ultimately my point is you are completely right. It is mind over matter. It's a mental strength challenge. Like, there are times where the situation is going to get such that you're going to want to give up. And you can't. Not really. Like, the baby has to come out.
The only way out is having a baby.
Yeah, it's truly the only way out is through. And somehow or another, that baby's going to come out of you. Maybe it's through a C-section, and some people say like that's a way of escaping it. I don't think so, because sometimes it's truly necessary. And even to me, if I was having a complicated birth and something had to happen and I needed a C-section, I think that in that moment, even more so, I would need to practice mind over matter. Like, I would need to calm myself down and make myself okay with this. And all of that happens up here. It's not down here. It's all in your head, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah, I would just struggle with that too. And I'm like, I know so many people have to have a C-section. So, like you said, some people plan, some people it's an emergency. And I can't imagine it. Obviously, if it ever needs to happen and it's an emergency and it's, life or death, like, I'll make myself fine with it. But yeah, I'm like, that is more like you were saying, like, you really need to prepare mentally for that. And I feel like even if you don't plan on ever getting a C-section, like, it's good to even know like what to expect and
Yes.
To know recovery of a C-section, even if you don't plan on having a C-section, in case it happens. Because in the moment, I've seen this with my clients, they bombard you with so much information because that wasn't the plan. So now all of a sudden they're like, okay, well, this is what we're going to do for pain, for numbing for the C-section, and then this is what we do. And it's so much information. You're not getting any of that. Your birth partner, they're also emotionally involved. They're not really getting any of that. And it's a lot of missed information. And then sometimes, you get maybe like a big information pack, but it's just, I always tell my clients, just prepare for all scenarios so that you're not caught by surprise, so that, and of course you never can, if they're going to feel trauma over something, then it's going to be that way. But I feel like trauma can be avoided a little bit, maybe when you're just better prepared.
I agree. So I agree. I think not 100% of the time, because sometimes I don't know, like it's super.
It's still gonna be traumatic.
I don't want to scare people, so I'm not gonna, like, it's not to make it alarming, but like it can happen that you have an especially terrible provider who does something bad. But that is so so rare. And most of the time, like you're saying, like it's like if you are pushed into a decision that goes against your instincts or against your better judgment, and you feel regret or you feel, whatever, that can lead to feeling like there was trauma in the birth. And that can be avoided if you are empowered with knowledge and you do prepare yourself and you have a birth team. Like, I mean, okay, I don't mean to knock husbands. Husbands are the best, the absolute best. My husband was an incredible birth partner with both of my babies. I couldn't have asked him to be more amazing. That said, it's hard for them. It's really tough because with the first kid, they've never done this before either. Like, and I don't know, like, when you're watching somebody that you love so deeply go through a really, really difficult or challenging time, that is hard. I'm not saying that the husband has it harder than the mama, because that's just not the truth. But it's not easy either. It's not a walk in the park. It's a lot. Men are typically very strong and they are supportive and they're amazing. But you gotta remember that this is also challenging for them, and for them to be there for you requires a lot. And so when you have somebody like a doula present, or just an incredible birth team, whatever that looks like, a midwife that you love, or a relative or a friend who can be there to support you or whatever, it kind of, what's the word? It kind of takes a little bit of the load off emotionally, and physically, because it can be physically exhausting.
Yeah, and now your husband, your partner, they have support.
Yes.
Which is nice. And a lot of places now only allow hospitals, one person. So if you just have, in this case, like your husband, and going back to what you were saying, like they're seeing somebody they love suffer. They want to fix things. They're the protectors. So I feel like in this moment they must feel so helpless, and it's traumatizing, especially if you feel like you can't do anything. And I feel like having another support person in the room, or a good team that can coach, to be like, hey, give them ideas of like, hey, hold her hand right now and just focus more up here. Don't, just like be in her ear and just tell her like all the lovely things, like just some coaching. Because even though I've coached my clients before and they are prepared and they know what to do, when the moment comes, emotions are like running so high, they freeze. Then They don't know what to do. Like my husband, he almost passed out. My doula had to put his feet up, give him some essential oils, and come back to me and hold my hand. And then I had asked him afterward, and he's like, I just couldn't take you looking like you were in that much pain. He's like, that was just crazy. Like, he's like, the noises coming out of you. He's like, everything was just like too much.
Yeah.
And I've seen it with other birth partners too. They have to just step away for a moment, and it's nice to have, whether it's a mom or a friend or a doula, there to hold your hand while they take a minute, because you never know how they're going to react, especially as a first time parent too. But it's just tough because a lot of places only allow that one person. So
do you think that's because, so I remember when I was pregnant, it was right toward the end of like COVID craziness. And I remember at that time there were crazy rules, like everybody had to test, and if your husband tested positive, then he couldn't be in the room with you, and you couldn't have anybody visit. You couldn't have a doula, like it was only one person. I feel like before COVID it was a little bit more chill.
Definitely, because I remember even just going to the hospital when my like aunts were having their babies, and they could have whoever they felt comfortable with, as many people as they wanted. I feel like in the room, as long as feel like they weren't getting in the way, you know. But ever since COVID, it was like strictly one person. And then so far, I've only been to one location that has. Sorry, my cat is making a lot of noise. If I need to, I'll go get her. So I've been to only one location that actually allows more than one, but everywhere else is one birth support person, which is usually, you know, the baby's father, typically, or like a mom or something. And then they count the doula as like a team member, which is nice. So we don't count, because otherwise we wouldn't be allowed to go in either. They'd have to choose us or you know, their husband or boyfriend or whoever. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's nice that we're considered part of the team.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and also having that other, like having a doula there, I feel like is so nice, because in this day and age, everybody wants to document the birth too, whether it's pictures or videos. And back in the day, like, you know, you could have more people, and you have those old fashioned like videos, you could record the whole birth. Now they really are like, you can't record, but I still try to get what I can for mom, because I'm like, what do you mean? This is like her baby's being born. So it's nice for like dad to be present with mom and locked in, while you kind of step back and capture all this for them, because otherwise dad would have to be doing this. Mom wants pictures, mom wants videos, like dad would have to be doing this, and he wouldn't be in the moment. So I think I love taking pictures and doing that for them.
Yeah, it's funny because with my first, I have a bunch of pictures. I had asked my mom to take a bunch of pictures, and so my husband is a photographer, but I was like, no, I need you to be like with me. So I asked my mom to take pictures, and I have some really cool shots of my first labor. My second, I was in denial, and I thought it was going to go a lot longer. And I was like, we have so much time. And at one point, I remember I was laboring on the toilet, and I was like holding my husband's hands like this. And I'm like, when I labor, I'm very like active. I'm all over the place. And so I was like throwing him into walls and the washing machine, and had like my leg up on the sink. Anyway, it's I get very I've never done gymnastics.
Find a rhythm.
I've never done gymnastics despite my Russian heritage. But I get very gymnastic-y when it comes time to labor. Anyway, I remember I was like at the end of one contraction, and I was like, okay, we're gonna do one more contraction. As soon as it ends, you run upstairs, you get the camera, and then come back downstairs. He's like, okay, my parents were already there. And the contraction ended, and I was like, go, 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 go. So he ran upstairs, and I probably he made it like halfway up the stairs, and I was like, I need somebody in here. My mom came in. This is like, labor brain is so funny. So my mom comes in, and she had just recently injured her shoulder at that time. And I like looked at her, and I started grabbing her hands. Now, mind you, this is like right on the first, like, it wasn't at the peak of the contraction, but like I felt it like coming, you know? And I was like, not you, get dad. And she was like, what? I'm like, your shoulder, get dad.
I need to pull.
My poor dad comes in, he's like, I don't know what to do. Like, he's there to keep an eye on my toddler and like help the midwife and whatever. And I'm like, you're gonna figure it out, because I'm in the middle of like massive contraction right now. So I like grabbed his hands, and he's like looking at me like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, you're gonna figure it out. I don't know. And he managed just fine. My husband comes in, he's like, that was fast. And I was like, yeah, they're really close together.
It's nice that your dad was able to like experience that, like helping you in that moment too.
Mm-hmm. It was really cool. Yeah.
Oh, I know. I can't wait to make those memories of a home birth, and it's so beautiful to think about. And I pray every day that it just goes smoothly.
Yeah, I mean, so it's funny because like go smoothly. What does that even really mean, right? Like my first labor, my first labor arguably did not go smoothly. Like it was 23 hours. There were some really challenging moments there. Like you said, like going back, I probably would have done some things differently. I would have prepared myself a little bit differently, and I've done a lot of research since then that I'm like, I wish I'd known that then and whatever. But I look back on it, and it's whatever, it is what it is. And I learned so much from it, and I wouldn't change a thing. I mean, I guess I would, but I don't feel the need to. Like, I've settled that that's just how it happened, and it was great, you know? Um,
Yeah, you just let it run its course. Like you let nature do
yeah.
its thing, which is nice. You weren't being rushed, because if you were in the hospital, maybe it wouldn't have taken you. Maybe the labor wouldn't have been that long, but they would have been, they would have done that with Pitocin, and who knows what other interventions that would have caused. So
So I agree. You know, I can speculate. I don't know for sure, but I have a suspicion that there's a good chance, I'm not guaranteed, but there's a good chance that I would have ended up with a C-section, because at one point I had like a cervical lip. So that's when you instead of dilating perfectly evenly, there's like a piece that just kind of doesn't do its thing. And I was trying to push, sort of. We were trying to get him, he was like off to the side, my baby that is, he was like off to the side a little bit. Like, there were things that were making it not progress. And it was hours and hours of me just being at the same point. I was getting super frustrated. I was getting very discouraged. And I think in that moment, had I been in the hospital, if somebody came to me and was like, look, you have failure to progress, because that's what it would have been called. We need to speed things up for the sake of the baby, you know, because probably that's what would have been said. I would have fought it maybe a moment, and then I probably would have given in, because there was a moment, even at home, where I was like, I quit. And my midwife's assistant, who happened to have training as a doula, she understood the assignment, and she got in my face and she's like, girl, you can't quit. The way out is the way through, and you have to get your head back in the game, because that's the only way we're going to make it through this. You have to remember why we're doing this. You have to remember that there's a baby. Whatever's going on in your space, like, we can talk it out, we can go through it, but at the end of the day, you're the one that's going to make it happen. So I need you to get your head back in the game, whatever that means, however you need to do it, and we're going to get through this together. We're all here for you, but we need you here too. And it was like this, I felt like some sports ball player, and my coach was giving me the pep talk for the winning, you know, I don't understand sports, but that's how it felt. And I was like, oh, okay. And I did. And I just, whatever the cloudy thoughts of giving up or defeat or whatever, I was like, I don't have time for you right now. I can't deal with these thoughts. And she's right. I need to really get my head in the game. And I did. And all of a sudden I was like, all right, I need a little boost of energy. I had some honey, you know, I got up, suddenly my water broke. And then it was like go time. It kicked off. The labor really picked up. It was still a couple hours away from meeting my baby, but things started really moving. And I think that in a hospital, I probably would have been led down the route of interventions, potentially a C-section. And at home, I had a doula who kind of verbally smacked me around a little bit and got me to get my, stuff together. And I definitely prefer that alternative to the medical interventions.
yeah, and it is the way they word things. I feel like they can definitely be pushy, but even, and that's just one of the reasons why I feel like having a doula can be so beneficial, because your birth partner might know what you want and you know what you want, but then in the moment, the way they word things and how they are pushy, it can really mess with your emotions, because in that moment, it's high emotions, and they're like, the baby and you and however it is. But having a doula there, I feel like knowing that they have your back, and we're not involved necessarily emotionally like their partner is. Like, we are, I would say I'm emotionally involved with my clients, obviously. I care for them, but I'm not like, I can remove myself and be like, no, I think, let's talk about this, or I can just help them understand it differently, or just give them the courage. I feel like having a doula there can make them feel more confident and safe in standing up for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big thing too. A lot of people think like, oh, a doula is going to advocate for you, but we are taught like you're not really supposed to advocate for them. You just make sure that they feel confident and they're advocating for themselves. Obviously, I have had people that are like, well, especially my Spanish speaking clients, because there's a language barrier, but they're like, no, like if they mention this, you tell them that no. And I'm like, okay, like they're very clear, like I want you to advocate for me if they're trying to like push something, and I'm like, okay, but I still always will be like, listen, they are suggesting this now, but it's up to you. So like, what do you want to do? And they're like, oh no, like you know what my plan was. I'm like, okay.
Mm.
But but yeah, I feel like having that person in the room who's not going to be emotionally affected to like sway a decision, um, is good too, because they're like, oh no, my doula has my back. This is what I'm doing, because I feel like they can easily just sway mom and dad.
Yeah.
I mean, they did it to me, even like in a not stressful situation with a cervical check. That was not stressful. I don't know why I gave in. And then in the stressful situation, I was in pain, and I'm like, okay, I don't care, fine. So,
I mean, I would say that, like, I don't know about you, but even for me at home, like, I didn't know that I was in control. Like, it sounds so silly, but like a lot of moms don't realize that you're allowed to ask questions and you're allowed to say no. And it's okay. Like, you don't, just because something is suggested doesn't mean that that's the only option. So a doctor is trained to be a doctor, and they're going to say, hey, if I see A, I do B. But you're allowed to go, hey, you see A, what if we don't do B? What happens if we wait? Are there alternatives? Is there something else we can try? Can we try that a little later? You know, like, you're still a human, you're still running the show, it's still your birth, it's still your baby. Like, you have the, not only the right, I would say you have the responsibility to stay in the driver's seat and remain in control for the sake of your own experience, and so that you don't look back on it with regret and wishing that you did it differently, but also for your baby. Like, particularly for the moms that have done the research ahead of time and they know, okay, if I do this, there are side effects, there are risks to that. Like, any intervention comes with risks. I mean, I say that, but like, living comes with risks. You get in a car, you're taking a risk. You get pregnant, you're taking a risk. You know what I mean? Like, there's risk involved in everything, and it's up to you to gauge, okay, is the risk or the benefit the greater in this specific scenario, in this specific moment in time? Because, like, you could say, well, Pitocin is always bad, but that's not true. There is a time and a place for it to be used. C-sections are the worst. That's not true. There is a time and a place when C-sections are the greater good. But you have to be able to make that decision with a level head, which having a doula there can just help you keep your perspective and keep your reason, your wits about you in a time that, like you said, is very high emotions. Your hormones are going bonkers, like bonkers. When you're in labor, your hormones are doing overtime. It's not a walk, like, it's called labor for a reason. It's a lot of work. And so in that moment, it really helps to have somebody there who's going to be calm, who's seen this kind of stuff before. This isn't their first rodeo. They know what the different terms mean and what the alternative options are. And they can just, even if you end up going with what the doctor is suggesting, you can do it from a place of control and autonomy. And informed consent is a word that is very important to understand. Like, you need to understand why you're doing the things you're doing, not just because the doctor said so, because then you feel powerless and you feel like it's not really, your birth gets taken away from you to some degree.
Definitely. And yeah, I think like a doula can be such a calming and grounding person. Like, that's how I felt with my doula. I felt like she really grounded me when I felt panicky, like, or even after birth. You know, there's this birth high, but then also like there's so much going on. I'm trying to breastfeed the baby, and like I said, the delivering the placenta and the stitching, and knowing that my husband almost passed out several times. Like, she was just such a calming presence and just really grounded me. And that's nice, because again, he's like this and I'm like this, and we just needed that, like, everybody's good, your baby's here. So that was beautiful. And then what you were saying reminded me of something I always teach my clients about. It's the B.R.A.I.N acronym.
Yes.
So I always say, like, to make a truly informed decision, and that goes all along with encouraging mamas to just do their research and just really look into everything. And to make a truly informed decision, you want to think with your brain. So you want to, any scenario, and it's not just doctors, but anything that anybody's talking to you about that requires a decision of any kind. What are the benefits? What are the risks? What are the alternatives? What's your intuition telling you? And then what happens if you do nothing? And if you, once you go over all those and make a decision, that's a truly informed decision because you covered all the bases. So, and I tell people, I'm like, you don't even, not even in pregnancy, I'm like, just in life, like, you should always be asking that question.
It's
Like,
true. And this continues into parenting. My goodness, there's so many decisions to make. Like, you're like, okay, I got through the pregnancy, I got through the labor, I got through delivery, I have a baby. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait, there's so many more decisions. Diapers, co-sleeping, potty training, vaccinations, medications, pediatricians, I don't know, butt lotion. Like, there's just endless amounts of decisions, you know, like, man, and that acronym definitely, okay, what are the benefits? What are the risks? What are the alternatives? What does your intuition tell you? What happens if I do nothing? Is like so, it's just something, it's stabilizing is what it is. It gives you something where you're like, especially nowadays in the age of the internet, my goodness, you go on Facebook, you can learn that anything in this world is trying to kill you. Like,
yeah, everything.
everything is trying to kill you. Like, drink milk, it'll save your life. Don't drink milk, it's gonna kill you. Drink more water. If you drink too much water, you're gonna die. You're like, oh my goodness.
Yeah. It's, and nothing will ever be perfect. Like, even if you try to do all the best things, but yeah, I mean, you get all these conflicting things. Like, I know even just with things to do during pregnancy or things for newborns, like that were okay or encouraged, even just a year or two ago, now we're like, oh no, do this instead. So
Right.
it's like, okay. So it really is, it comes down to intuition with some of that stuff, definitely for sure. But
Intuition
also
and,
with the,
and honest education, and like, you know, your aunt or your cousin or your neighbor or, you know, your best friend's grandmother, I don't know, like, everybody's gonna have an opinion, and you definitely, it's a skill that is learned. This didn't come naturally to me, and I still to this day struggle with it sometimes, and it's like, you know, a constant battle to just look for yourself and think for yourself and learn to think critically. And you know what? The truth is, sometimes you're going to mess up. You're going to make the wrong decision. And you got to be okay with that too, and be like, cool, well, I made the right decision with the information that I had at that time, and then next time this comes up, I'm going to do better. And you do better. And it's all part of this game called life, and it's certainly part of the game called parenting, my goodness, you know.
a lot of trial and error with parenting for sure. And what works for some, yeah, won't work for others. You just have
Exactly.
to try.
Yeah, so I'd say the sort of the moral of the story here is it's all in your state of mind, and you got to be flexible, and you got to just learn to think for yourself and advocate for yourself, and when you can't do that, you get somebody that can help you, right?
Exactly. And doctors, I think they're doing a little better now knowing that people, because of social media, there is a lot more information and there's a lot more encouragement to like dig deeper and do your research. So maybe doctors are getting used to being questioned a little more now.
Hmm.
But that wasn't the case forever ago. Sometimes you'll have a doctor that's really stuck in their ways, and I appreciate that. You know, you in late in pregnancy at 8 months faced one of these, you know, these people that are just like, no, it's like our way or the highway, basically, and you're just like, all right, bye. Like, they work for you, and it sounds crazy, but like, if you need to tell these people, like, you work for me, and this is what I want to do, and if that, you know, find somewhere else, find somebody who's going to be happy to work with you.
Yes, there are people out there. I mean, I feel like a broken record sometimes, but it is just, it's never too late to change providers. And, you know, like, the truth of the matter is, you might find somebody amazing straight from the get-go, and if they click and everything is right, stick with them. You know, like, I've met practitioners that I knew from the moment that I met them. I was like, you're amazing. And I would trust you to the end of the earth. Like, you know your stuff, and we're on the same wavelength, and you think the way that I do, and you understand how to communicate to me, and you understand what I need. Keep those people around, man. And every now and then you're going to find somebody, and it might change, you know? You might think that, like, for me, it took me 8 months to realize that my midwife group was not for me. And at 8 months pregnant, I was like, you know, I got to do better for myself. And they're great. They're honestly, none of the staff there were bad or evil or out to get me. They just weren't my tribe, you know? Dr. Jenny from Mama Bear Chiropractic that I had on a podcast, she says, find your vibe and find your tribe. And I was like, that really resonated. You have to find the people that vibe with you, and they're there on the same wavelength, you know?
I definitely think the providers you have for pregnancy also, but definitely like whoever's there at your birth, like it makes all the difference.
Mm-hmm.
Because you know they're there in an intimate, vulnerable moment, and they can make just such a big difference, good or bad. So that's why it's such an important decision who you trust to bring your baby into the world.
Yeah, I agree. And it's funny because, like, ultimately at the end of the day, this was also something that Dr. Jenny kind of imparted to me, was the doctors that are in the hospital are typically very good people. You know, you don't get into that line of work out of a hatred for humankind. You know what I mean? Not typically. Most of these people love their job and they love doing what they do, and they bring life into the world, and that's massive and it's huge. But also on the other side of that coin, they have to deal with the worst of it too. You know, like, they deal with the worst case scenarios. And after some time, they have to steel themselves against that emotionally, or else you break. Like, it's hard to see the worst case scenario. You know what I mean? And there's probably a guardedness that is, I don't want you to be that next experience, and I need to keep myself at least a little bit distant so that you don't get jaded and you don't completely just mentally cave, because I couldn't do it. I could never work in a hospital full time dealing with illness or death or sickness and trauma and whatever. I just don't feel like I have that mental or spiritual capacity, and my hat's off to the people that do, because man, we need those people. We need the people in the hospital to do their jobs, and you know, I'm very grateful for them. But you do have to realize that there is a sort of shield that has to be there for them to stay sane and to be able to continue to do the job, and you got to give them grace for that. But that also means that you have to advocate for yourself, and you have to be running your own end of the show.
So a lot goes into it for sure, and I'm glad that insurances are in the works of covering a doula. Mm-hmm. I know not all midwives take insurances, but I feel like maybe it's moving in that direction too, and that would be great. Just because, again, birth is like one of the best things that can come out of like the medical, all that. So I'm just like, why not? You know, they cover all these other things that are like, I don't know, negative, and it's like, well, help a mom have a beautiful experience, like, you know, give her the support she needs. Lactation consultants, like, there's just, you know, it takes, what does it say, it takes a village. Mm-hmm. And that's all part of, you know, family, friends, but also lactation consultants. I've heard amazing things about them. Everybody who's used one has said that they, you know, completely like saved their breastfeeding journey. Sleep consultants, I've heard great things about them, and it would be so nice if insurance
for therapists for recovery.
Yeah. Postpartum depression, like all that. And I think little by little we're getting there. But until then, like I tell people, I'm like, if you're interested in having a doula, like, always meet with more than one. Always ask, like, if they do payment plans, if they slide scale, if they're even just willing to work with a budget, because a lot of doulas, I feel like it's a passion for them, and they're always happy to help if they can. So, but I feel like people are scared to ask, or they're just like, oh, it's a lot, you know, we saw it on a website, it's a lot of money, they don't look into it. Mm-hmm. But I'm just like, oh, I wish everybody could just have a doula for at least for their first baby. I know that it's still beneficial for the second time around too, but like that first time is just so, it's just the most important. It's like,
I heard a really cool idea. Somebody, like, you know how people do like baby registries or whatever, somebody had a doula fund. Like, you can't hire a doula for somebody because you really need to make sure that the mom and the doula jive. Like, you can't pick them out for the mom. But if you have like a doula fund, you know, I mean, typically you charge somewhere in the range of, you know, $1,000, give or take a lot. There's a huge range. It depends. Everybody's got different services. You get prenatal appointments, you get a certain amount of time with the actual birth, you get postpartum visits. There's lots of different options out there, so don't quote me on that. But a gift that you could give to an expecting mama is, put together a doula fund. So people who don't want to buy off the registry or whatever, throw in a little cash and help them have somebody there to advocate for them. I thought that was like such a cool idea. It like blew my mind.
Yeah.
I didn't even think that.
Yeah, I've heard people that they have it at their baby shower. They kind of do like a little blurb, like explaining this is the kind of support we'd be getting, and so like anything you're willing to donate towards that, and yeah, people they'll just donate, and they can put that toward hiring a doula, and sometimes they'll get it all fully covered. It's just it never hurts to just put it out there. I feel.
Absolutely. Well, we are coming up on an hour. This has been wonderful. I don't even know if we covered all the things we had talked about covering, but this was a wonderful conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too.
Before we end off and before I sign off here, would you please tell the good people watching where they can find you, what areas you serve, what openings you have, and just shamelessly promote yourself.
Oh yeah. So my business name is Breathtaking Beginnings, but I'm really just going by my name now because I feel like there's so many like beginnings with all the doulas. I'm like, oh man, I should have thought about that better. But I'm on Instagram, breathtaking_beginnings, and then my email is breathtaking_beginnings@gmail.com. And I like to take about two clients a month. And right now I do have availability at least for once a month. I have one client for every month until November, and then I have some availability. But always reach out because I'm very fortunate to have great support when it comes to watching my daughter Sailor. So if a mama's in need and she wants support and I can take her, I'm happy to take her. And I serve New Haven County, and I'm in Wallingford, so I'll travel like an hour and a half even sometimes. I've gone as far as Worcester, Massachusetts, and that's an hour and a half.
Wow.
But I lived in Massachusetts before. I lived in Ludlow, Mass. So I go to like Bay State in Springfield, Mass, and Mercy. So yeah, I would just say if you're interested, reach out. Tell me your budget. We can make something work. But I'm excited. It's a passion work for me. I really wish I could do it every day. I wish I would have started it sooner. At least postpartum, being a postpartum doula, I wish I would have done that before having a daughter. I am a postpartum doula now, but I feel like it's hard because I have my toddler. So I'm like, oh, let me find care for her while I go help care for another baby. So we'll see. Maybe I'll get back to that, to being a postpartum doula. But right now, my focus is birth work. And
amazing.
Well, loving it so far.
Massachusetts are lucky to have you. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Before we go, I'm just going to also do a shameless plug. If you have not yet gotten your copy of the Sensible Mama's Glossary, you should go on Amazon, search it, and get your copy right now. It has simple definitions for pregnancy, birth, and beyond, and it's written in a way that you do not require a medical degree to understand all these terms. So when you're going to your OB appointment, or you're seeing your midwife, or you're there in the hospital, you can not be thrown off by all the crazy amounts of terms that get thrown around in this space. So, they talk about the positioning of the baby, or where the placenta is, or you go to your ultrasound and they tell you that this is posterior and this is anterior, and what do all these things mean? So I put together a glossary in the hopes that it would help some mamas, and it's written in a very conversational, chill tone, so you're not going to be like, I need like endless amounts of medical textbooks to even begin to understand this stuff. So go get your copy, Sensible Mama's Glossary. It's on Amazon. Go get it. And with all of that, thank you again for joining. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye.